Hello, welcome to my channel. I am going to talk about the Eight of Swords today. The Kate Bush song I've chosen is an intriguing one. I think it is a very personal one to Kate Bush, so I'm not sure we know exactly what it's about, but I'm really glad it's going to be in my deck because it's one of those songs that I think can mean different things to different people at different points in your life. It's got lots of resonance to me, and I remember a particularly intense experience of first listening to it, so I'll talk briefly about that as well. With the Eight of Swords, I thought it would be quite useful to look at this in the context of Gemini, so to look at it in the context of the zodiac. Now, if you're Gemini like me, and I've got Gemini Sun and Moon, you might well feel that the tarot doesn't like you very much because your cards, or the cards associated with the deck and wheel, are Eight of Swords, Nine of Swords, and Ten of Swords. And yeah, typically in the Thoth, Crowley does not mince his words. So we have interference, which we're going to look at today, cruelty, and ruin. The only perspective I would add to that, so we've got this kind of dark energy in these cards that I think most people would struggle with, wouldn't really welcome probably. I mean, I know I'd say there's good and bad in every card, but they are not probably cards that just before some special event or something that you want to see, that you would welcome. So I just wanted to put it quickly in the context of the major arcana cards that are also in a way associated with Gemini. So we have the Lovers. This is a lovely kind of light, bright card. I haven't got the Rider-Waite here, but in the Rider-Waite it's like sunny, it's sunshine. It's associated with June, summer. It's about, not just about relationships, so it definitely can be that, but our relationship with the world, our curiosity. We can fall in love with lots of things, people, nature, ideas, and there's that wonderful energy and passion, which I think is also present in the Gemini. So I think we have, in a way, we have the light and shade in the major arcana with this Lovers card, and in the minor arcana, which shows what happens when we get too caught up in that mental, that air energy, when the thoughts work against us. So let's just focus particularly on this Eight of Swords. And I should probably bring up the image that everybody probably more readily associates with this rather than the Thoth, and this is the Rider-Waite. So we have this figure and she is bound. In some tarot decks, not so much this one, but in some of them, they show the figure more loosely bound, so it's more obvious that they can escape if they want to. But most people interpret this and will say that she is not really trapped. There is a possibility, if she removes that blindfold, there is a possibility for her to escape. Her legs aren't bound, actually, and she is not as trapped as she thinks. But there's definitely a perception of her of feeling trapped, which is probably the interference that Crowley is talking about here. And that is the Jupiter energy, really. So we have the Gemini energy, which can be, as I said, can get caught into, if you're creative, especially sort of if you're creative thinking, that creativity can work against you sometimes. So you can start imagining the worst. And I think this is sort of what's in this energy of the 8, 9, and possibly the worst has happened by the 10. But this is definitely in the energy of the 8 and 9 of Swords. So I think that Jupiter, which is generally a very positive planet, it's about expansion, there is that opportunity there for openness. So you're not, the general meaning of this card would be you're not as trapped as you think. There is a way through. It's difficult. Things are difficult. It's an acknowledgement of that. But there is actually hope on the horizon with this card. So let me just show you the Kate Bush song. Now this card was really frustrating to make. Actually, I put it away for a few days and was pressing it to make it flat, which I always have to do after I've been sticking. And so I hadn't seen it for a few days. And then I looked at it again and thought, oh, actually, I quite like it. I like it more than I thought, which seems consistent with the energy of this card. But it was a challenge. It was a difficulty. I had to really push through it because it didn't quite come out how I wanted to or how I intended at first. Anyway, so let me show it to you and then I'll talk about the song. So I've gone straight for the title here. I did think about some of the lyrics themselves. Like there's the lyric about, right, I haven't got the lyrics in front of me actually, but I've tried to remember it properly, about young's dream drowning in life's grief or something. And I think, sorry, I've probably said that wrong, but I wanted something a little bit vaguer. I kind of thought the big stripy lie could be the doubt itself. So what is the stripy lie? I mean, we don't know from the song. As I said, it is, I think, personal, but also deliberately obscure or deliberately open to interpretation. That's a better way of putting it. But at any point in life, the lie can be lots of different things, but the lie could be you're trapped, there's no way out. And that is anything, I think, that kind of where our mental energy works against us. As I said, I had quite an intense experience when I first listened to this song. It is the B-side of Rubber Band Girl. And Rubber Band Girl was released in the early 90s while I was at university. And I'd been a big Kate Bush fan since I was, I'd first listened to her when I was a child and listened for Never Forever. And then I got really into her at like 15, 16. Listened to Sensual World, then Hounds of Love, and then, bought every album I could. So I was impatient at university for her to release a new album, and that there'd been such a big gap. And when I was at university, no one else was really into Kate Bush. It was like I felt like I was a little bit of an outsider in that sense. She'd kind of, everyone's into sort of Blur or Oasis or in indie groups, and she was not on people's radar. So I was very excited to hear Red Shoes and to hear Rubber Band Girl. But Rubber Band Girl for me wasn't in that space that I was at that time. It didn't chime with me as much as Big Stripy Lie, the B-side. There was something about the darkness of the B-side, that mix of longing and heartache, which just all completely appealed to me as a late teen. And I was listening to this. I was doing some... I trained to be a lawyer. And I was doing some work experience, just to try and, get some work experience on my CV and try and learn what being a lawyer was about. And I had to go to the passport office in Croydon as, well, you can imagine, or maybe you can't, but it was the most depressing place possible. Very crowded. People desperate and, frustrated with bureaucracy and trying to get their passports. And, if you went to the passport office, it was usually because there was a problem getting things arranged and stuff. So it was, lots of people were tense, waiting with their families. And it, listening to it on my Walkman, waiting, I don't know how long I waited, probably over an hour, to see someone. It was a very kind of, the music, I think, when you listen to music in that space or that experience, it goes in deeper. It sort of seeps right into you. And I loved it. I loved that song. This picture, I think it comes from, I'll put a link actually, just to credit the book it comes from, because I can't remember it off the top of my head. But this was a newspaper cutting. I think it was a 1980s newspaper cutting. And I just loved the expression on her face, that sort of thoughtfulness. And we've got some of the text of the newspaper here. I tried to put this and make them into 8 swords, and it just didn't work. It looked too messy. As I said, this card itself I struggled with. But I wanted this sort of whiteness here to be a little bit of the space to, like the light is coming in here. There is the break in the swords. That was my intention with it. What is the big stripy lie? Somewhere, I can't remember where either, is, I think Nigel Kennedy talks about getting, being contacted about this song and hearing it, and him thinking, wow, I don't know what this is about, but of course it's Kate Bush. It's going to be amazing. So I think it does mystify people. When I Googled this, people, quite a few people saying, what is this song about? But as I said, to me, I think it's about self-doubt. Could be to do with the end of a relationship. Some people think the stripy lie is something that is positive, like almost like a romantic myth, that everything's going to be roses, which is not what happens with a relationship, of course. So it could be a delusion as well as something negative, something too positive, maybe. But I thought it was an interesting thing to reflect on, especially when, this card comes up for me in the future. So if you have any ideas about what big stripy lie is to you, I'll be, as always, really interested to hear. And thanks for watching. Goodbye.